Look Up TV. The following program is rated PG. Parental guidance is recommended.
Welcome once again to another episode of This Is Your Story. And on this particular segment, we listen to people's experiences, whether they're good, they're bad, ugly, or beautiful. And for today, we have a very interesting segment coming up for you with a special person called Dr. Ngina. And Dr. Ph.D. Ngina is actually holding the title for the lady who has earned a Ph.D. at the youngest age, and that's at the age of 28. Let me not talk too much. Let me introduce herself and let her do the talking. Karibuni.
Thank you so much. My name is Dr. Ph.D. Ngina. I work at Zizi Africa Foundation as the Assessment and Research Manager. And it has been a beautiful journey, graduating at our youngest age, at our age of 28, and making history in this country. Something I never thought a person with my history, with my story, would actually make history in this country. I think it's a beautiful story.
I think it's a beautiful story as well, and I think our viewers will find it to be a beautiful story as well. And I feel like we should jump right in. So you're holding that title currently, aren't you?
I think so.
You think
I'm
so?
always
No one
checking online to see, but I don't want to hold it forever. I know there are very young, brilliant people who are doing so much, and I don't mind if I get to hear someone else who has a PhD in whatever field at a certain age, below 28. I think it would be a beautiful experience to also
for someone else to follow in your footsteps.
Exactly.
Yes. And in terms of this happening to you, I may ask before we go into your past, is this something you would say you had planned, or do you think it just happened as it should have?
Actually, I never planned. So things happened. I was lucky to get a scholarship to do my master's, a scholarship to do my PhD, so I didn't have to worry about school fees. And also I met very experienced professors and doctors who are ready to work with me the journey, because I believe when you're doing your master's, especially when it comes to the research and the project, I think that is where many people waste their time. But I think I was lucky. I never actually dreamt that I would make history. Actually, when I was about to graduate, I went online to check, is there anyone else who had graduated at my age? Of course, I didn't see anyone. Wow. But it is not until I graduated and my story was shared that I said, wow, it is happening. It happened. I made history.
You made history. Yeah. And, you know, let's now go back before you made history. And I'd like to ask, how did it make your people feel? Your family members in particular, when you got this title?
Unfortunately, the person I would have wanted to feel something was not there, my mother. And so I'm enjoying this space. Maybe, you know, when your parent has walked with you the journey and you want her to be there, she was not there. But she had celebrated my degree graduation. She cried.
Really?
She couldn't imagine that her daughter is graduating. You know, in my extended family, I was the first to graduate with a degree.
It looks like you're the first for many things. So hold on. So you were the first to graduate with a degree, undergraduate degree?
Yes.
And that's in your family in general?
In my family, my mom's brother, sister, children, you know. Wow. And of course, after that, there have been so many other degrees, I think. But I think I'm celebrating being the first with the master's again. I mean, focusing on the family. I saw the PhD. I know she could have been very happy. And many people celebrated. I think this country, I was celebrated by people I didn't know. They became my family. They made my story their story. They have shared this story with their children. And I think that is the essence of humankind, that we celebrate good things and we want them with our children.
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, you know, speaking of humans and what we plan and celebrate and everything, I have to ask, for your particular PhD, you know, you said you're the first one in your family to graduate, undergraduate, first one in your family to graduate with a master's, and the first one in the entire country to have a PhD at the age of 28. So I'd have to go back and ask, what was it like, especially when you start with your primary school, secondary school? Have you always been a really high achiever?
No, and yes. When I did my class A 2002, I failed terribly. I got 235 marks. Can you imagine?
235?
35 marks.
Wow.
That was 2002. And 16 years later, I made history. And I had to repeat class 8, got 369. And I think that is the changing point. After getting 369, I was lucky to join Tumutumu Girls in Nyeri County, and I got a B+. Maybe a B+ was not the best. Of course, there were people getting A minuses, but I think I still celebrate that performance because I loved mathematics and I got an A in mathematics. So I think I was the first in terms of that because I wanted to really perform well in mathematics. And joining the university, I was the first in the Faculty of Education. So when graduating with a first class honors of 75 points, and that was brilliant and beautiful for a young lady. You know, there are times when most of the time men are supposed to be making history, to be being the best, to be doing, you know. But I think for me, being the first lady and inspiring other women to know they can do better. Their story should not be defined by the 235 they got. That one time you can fail, but you just need to pick up all the pieces, join them together, they'll become even more beautiful than they were. And I think actually that fact that I failed a little bit even make my story better somehow. Of course. Because I have lived the moment of failing. I may not have really understood what failure was at that time because I was just 12 years. But my mother, who had not gone to this level of education with just a Form 4 dropout, who got children out of wedlock, and of course that time I think the society could not be kind to her. She knew the importance of education. She definitely forced me to go back and repeat and said, you know, I don't have the money that is needed, but I know you'll get to school. And if you want your children to have a better life than mine, than what you had, it is only education. And I still believe that education is very important. And all of us need to actually get some skills. And I think we get that through education, whether it is online or it is in class or wherever. There's a bit of learning that is needed for anybody to get to a certain level. And of course, now after I got a first class honors at Egerton University, they gave me a scholarship. So I didn't have to worry about the money, and it was full scholarship. It was, you know, the first time that your account has 100,000.
Wow. That was the first time you looked in your account and said,
and it had that amount of money because they needed to take care of my hostel and all that. So that money is sent to you. You have to manage it. And instead of doing hostel thing, I went home and did something for my mother. And I think it was also very important for me to do that, to also, you know, sacrifice, live in a very small hostel, but also she get some bit of the money to support her because I think she needed that. And I look back and I'm like, that is the only thing I managed to do for her. Because when I could have done a lot, now she's no longer there.
Right.
Yeah, and so 2015, I graduated. And actually, I was celebrated at Egerton University. The band were told to play a song for me because it was like they had never seen something like that. Someone can finish a Ph.D, a master's within 2 years. And it was master's in applied mathematics.
You finished your master's in exactly 2 years. It is rare. It is rare. People tend to overstay that period. Napata Abby, you've been doing your master's for 4 years.
Yes, and so I had to walk from where I was seated up to the aisle, and the band was playing, and you know, my mom was quite so emotional. And I owned the moment. I owned the day. It was my moment. And of course, now when I finished 2015, I got a scholarship to be a doctoral student at Strathmore University. I came to Nairobi from the village. You know, it was very different, very new. And within 3 months, the DAD, which is a German exchange program, came on board, and they supported me to kind of now finalize my PhD. And 2018, I graduated. 29th of June.
Okay. And I mean, congratulations once again for all these achievements. But before we really get into what you're doing now and what you plan to do in the future, perhaps because you mentioned something about education being really important, and I think right now our students have gotten their results for KCPE, you know, and they're some of them are unhappy. very unhappy, and some of them are okay, and some of them are, happy with what they got. But I heard you saying that if you hadn't failed, perhaps things wouldn't have worked out the way they are, and that it's a good thing that you didn't do too well. Could you please elaborate quickly on perhaps any young person could be listening who didn't perform too well in their KCPE, and let them know that things could change, and then we can start to talk about you.
Things should change. Human beings, we are not limited. We should not be put in a box because of our performance. Right. Of course, things have changed then. That time you could repeat. Now there's 100% transition. You have to go to a certain high school. And I think it's a good thing. Go to that high school, make your story. Your story will never be complete. And imagine, we have had every time the CES is releasing exam, he always mentioned about these children who got 170 something and now they have gotten a B+. Because I think human beings can achieve everything. It is about you committing to the price. So where did you want to be? Maybe you wanted to get 400 and get yourself in St. Francis. You didn't. You got 300, found yourself in your certain district school or sub-county school. You can still make your story. And your story will even be more beautiful because of these kind of things that you're passing along the way. I am reading The Promised Land by Obama, and I look at the way his life was not like the presidential life.
Yeah.
But he ended up being the president. And I read that book because I'm looking for that was not presidential, that made him president. So that part, that of failure, of moments where you fail, like now we have so many girls who got pregnant. Are we saying that they don't have a story? They cannot make a story. They cannot make a living. They can even make history.
Of course.
They just need to go back to school, remain true to the price. Where did you want to find yourself? What grade do you want to get? Work towards that and focus. I think many times we lose hope. My mom could have lost hope when I took 235 marks, but she said, she gave me options, go back to school. Actually, it was the only option. And I had to obey. I went back to school, but I went back and decided to work hard. And I think there's an element of ethics where you're committed to what you need to achieve. And I know many children are very frustrated. There are some even with good marks who are not getting themselves to the schools they thought those marks could get them. And of course, all these that when you go to national school, your performance will be better. I have a story about our school in the village. It is just a cadet school. When it started, we actually had a nickname. We thought people were just going there to pass time. But over the years, it has produced the best in our village who have gone to the university, and they are doing amazing jobs. And I look at that and I'm like, maybe one child could probably be admitted to that school, but they don't think they can make it. Sure. But they can really make it in that small village school.
Right. So then you would say, basically, all in all, in case you do fall off of your path for your goals, just get back on track. Now in the too.
It is true.
Yeah, because it happens.
You have to pick up yourself. Sometimes, especially at that young age, I think the parents really need to play a role, because 12, 13, 14, they are not making good decisions, because of course they fear that maybe you are not happy with them. You think you used a lot of money taking them to the best boarding schools, and they have given you the worst marks that you ever imagined. I know their parents who even disown their children because of such performance. I think parents need to play their role. And their role is not about the marks, it's about parenting and encouraging and inspiring and role modeling. And you can do that to these children and give them hope and tell them, you know what, you're still my child, and I know you'll do well. You just need to continue affirming to them that they are capable.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Wow, that's powerful. And when we're talking about plans and things being unpredictable in our lives, such as, people going to do their exams and not performing too well, and they feel as if they've got to go back to the drawing board. What was your focus like after I think just before you graduated, you lost your mom, and now getting back to your story of education, because this is something that can affect anyone greatly, but still, shortly afterwards, you managed to graduate with your Ph.D. How did you keep your focus intact?
It was one of the most challenging moments of my life. I now understand what life is. You know, before then, when someone tells you I've lost somebody, you don't really understand what that meant to them. And when I lost my mom 2017, and this call comes and I'm told my mom is not there and I have to go back to the village, and you finish the 7 days of mourning, you bury her and you come back to the city. And you go through moments of total loss. You don't know where to start. Your studies, your work, your friends, you kind of feel like now you hate everybody. You know, those grieving moments, you can't understand those emotions. And I went through a rigorous process. I'm happy that time at Strathmore University, I was going to a therapist, and she was very good to me. You know, of course, she didn't give me ideas. I could go there, talk, cry, talk, cry. But I think it was very important. At some point when I couldn't sleep well, I started getting these sleeping pills and all that. But one of my changing point is when I went to Germany. So after this scholarship that I got, you were supposed to be in this country for some time and then go to Germany for some time. I went to Germany, a country where I don't speak the language. And one time, like, I had a mental breakdown. Because I don't know whether it's a mental breakdown or what happened, but for 24 hours I couldn't sleep. And I remember having my key. I went to school, so where I was living is very near the college, and I went to college and I was looking for my key and I couldn't get it.
Your key?
Yes.
Okay.
To open the door. And I stayed for 2 hours looking for that key. I couldn't, and it was in my bag. I called this German and I asked him, I have lost my key, you need to come take me to the municipality of that country, because that means I don't have my passport and I didn't want to walk without any identification. And he asked, can I check your bag? Of course, there, you know, they don't want to touch your bag without any. And I said, yes. And he got the key.
You
And
had looked for it in your bag for 2
hours.
Called him, and he checked in the same bag.
He got the key.
And found it.
He got the key.
Wow.
And I called my friend that time. He's now my husband, but that time he was my friend. He was in a different state, and I told him about this, and he said, I told you, you need to get your life together.
Yeah.
And that was it. I had to now, this moment I can't sleep, I had to do something that was constructive. And this constructive is me reading, like I'll never read 24 hours. If I can't sleep, what else? I don't need to take the sleeping pills, I just need to read. But I think it was also a moment for me telling me, you know, most of us go through those moments, whether it's loss of friends, loss of family, loss of money, and loss of many things. And we tend to remain at that point. If I remained there, my story would not be about finishing my PhD at an age of 28. Maybe I could have lost it or something like that, you know. I had to pick up those pieces. I know she did a good job. Fate happened that she is no longer with me, but that doesn't mean I can't continue making my story. And young people need to really recognize that your story should not be pegged with someone else. Your story is about you, it's not about someone else. If I was to write a book, my mom would make it more beautiful, but still you'll be reading a book about Purity Ngina.
Sure, yeah, sure. And at that point, you decided to let go and focus on what you have in front of you. And which brings me to another point that's got to do with focus. You know, as you're studying for your PhD, your 20s, you got this at the age of 28. From what I see and from what I know, is that people around the age of 21 up until 27 hapo, it's a very liberal age for people. A lot of people don't take it too seriously. Most people start taking things seriously after the age of 25, but by finishing your undergraduate, your master's, then your PhD, that must have taken some sacrifices, because a university student at that age, they think about many things, relationships and having fun, being adventurous, traveling. But here you were, breaking barriers, pretty much. What did you have to sacrifice to do that?
I think I still had relationships.
Okay.
But
sure.
For sure, there's a lot of sacrifices that one has to make. But you see, for me, I was raised in the village. This idea of going out, going to rave and all that was new, and it required a lot of money. And you see, my mom, did not have the resources that is needed. Actually, for me to join university, my community had a harambe, and that is the money I joined university. So you can't use their money to go drink.
Sure.
Or to, you know, and everything that happens. And I'm not saying that my path is the best, but I look back and I would still make the same decisions because I think I'm enjoying this space. I can do everything now. If I want to visit places, I think I can visit, but I'm not very adventurous. I think also that has helped me. You know, your personality sometimes can also be something that is positive in one way or another. Maybe someone else would think is a bad thing. I was making fun. my friends are making fun of me because I went to Mombasa. Do you want to hear?
I would love to hear. I would
2019.
Love to. Wait. Before 2019, you hadn't been to Mombasa? Ah, purity.
Imagine.
Daktari.
Yes, and I was invited to talk to women engineers.
Oh,
so,
okay.
yeah, it's about women engineers. And the next time, I have only gone twice. The next time, there was a program, and my husband was in that program, and they were told to come with their spouses. I am not very adventurous because I have to go somewhere because there's something.
There's something taking you there.
Yeah.
So even that going to Mombasa is because you were going to do a particular...
Yes.
It's not a holiday.
No, I was going to speak to women about STEM and science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And then the next one is that there was a program happening. My family was invited. I loved the program. But I'm not saying that going to places is not good, because that is where you get different perspective about life.
Exactly.
I have an intention of visiting different places in this country for reasons. So whether it's to know whether children are learning, how youth are operating, how people were able to innovate things during COVID, you know. So it's not like I'm going for a vacation, but I'm going for a work, something that is not work really, something that is close to my heart. And I can only get that experience from other communities. And forgive me, I'm not saying what other people do is bad.
Sure.
I'm just saying that we all have different paths that we take.
Right.
And our paths will lead us to different places.
Right.
Yeah.
And you know, we're going to take a break in a few minutes. And after that, we're probably going to talk about your future and what you're doing in the present time. So before that break, what I would like to finish our first segment with is exactly what you've said, that it's not bad that the path others have chosen are different to yours. It's just that it's just different. It's a different path. And what would you say, just in briefly closing before moving on to our next segment, about the unpredictability of life and the plans that we make? Because again, you lost your mom at a very crucial point. You had failed. You didn't do too well in your exams in KCPE when you were younger. So these are unpredictable things that hit us. But you see, you had to pick yourself up and move on. So before we take a break, what could you say about us human beings linking our plans and the unpredictability of life, and what do we do in such moments? Because we have goals.
Yeah, I think we all have goals, and sometimes you don't have to achieve them.
Yeah.
Timelines, I know we have boards that we have fixed in our houses that says, by the end of this, I have to have done this. And I think for me, it's just remaining true to that. You know, I want to be somewhere at this point. So what am I doing? I might not get there at that space, but I might taking few steps, a step at a time. And just knowing there's some light at the end of the tunnel. So that light is what you keep on chasing. And sometimes you don't know the end of the tunnel. You don't know how long the tunnel is. It might take long. Just don't give up. Believe that you're going to get to the end of that tunnel and actually get that light. And that light is going to shine upon your life.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Thank you for that. That's powerful. And, you know, speaking of light shining into our life and getting to the end of that tunnel, that's definitely what happened to you before you decided to... You said you had a mental breakdown at one point because you were reading too much. And that's what our goals do to us. They push you to that point where even your body says, you have to give me a break, you know. And as we go on break ourselves, keep in mind that no matter what your goals are, you shall get to them. There is an end of the tunnel that you shall arrive at if you stay focused. And at that point, let's take a short break and we shall be back.
Faidika Real Estate brings to you Soteria Gardens, Matu, for as little as 75,000 Kenya shillings on cash payment, 99,000 for installments with 40,000 Kenya shillings deposit and balance in 5 months. For more information, visit our office at Thika Town, Grace House, 3rd floor. Feel free to call us on 0724 256 626 or 0710 265 687.
Welcome to the Natural Juicing Center. We are a unique organization that seeks to provide the community with an alternative healthcare option. We specialize in the use of a natural holistic system that focuses on building health through cleansing and nourishing of the body. We utilize a variety of natural health promoting methods in our services, which include juicing therapy, hydrotherapy, colon cleansing, massage therapy, and a comprehensive cleansing service, among others. Our juices are freshly made and tailored to each and every client's individual needs after evaluation by our team through our free consultation service. You can now book for any service or order for food supplements on our website www.naturaljuicingcenter.co.ke. You can also visit our center in Kahawa Sukari, house number 1334, Kahawa Sukari Avenue. Natural Juicing Center. Your health is your wealth.
Revival Sanctuary of Glory presents the 17th Burning Fire Conference from the 18th to the 25th of July at the Revival Sanctuary of Glory, Riruta, from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. The theme will be Recovery All, hosted by Bishop Dr. Ken and Mercy Ken, alongside guest speakers Apostle Patrick Mureithi, Bishop Julius Tinkoi, Reverend Dan Mwirigi, Pastor Baraka, and guest singer Naomi Karanja and Sarah Kay. For more information, call us on 0722 392 375.
Back from that brief break, remember you're watching This Is Your Story. Today I have a guest called Dr. Purity Ngina, who holds the title for getting a Ph.D. at the youngest age of 28 here in Kenya. No one else has taken that title as we know of, do we?
I don't think there's one. But
And moving right along, so your thesis is something I'd like to cover because it's of great importance. I believe right now, if you watch the media, especially here in Kenya, there are strides that they're trying to make in terms of making ARVs more affordable and trying to deal with all the issues when it comes to HIV and AIDS. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what your thesis for your PhD, what your topic was, and what contribution it has made to the research of HIV and AIDS in Kenya?
thank you. So when I joined Strathmore, and I mean, there are many topics you can pick from. Biomathematics is actually a branch of applied mathematics, but you have to apply mathematics in biological processes. And so there are many things you could take, malaria, but HIV was really speaking to me because up to date, we still say 1.5 Kenyans are infected. And there's so many families that are still affected because either it took their loved ones or their loved ones are sick, and this even stigma is still something. And so I knew from the word go, I would want to work on this. And of course, HIV again is broad, there are many other things, but I was asking myself, where do I think the impact can be felt? And it was on about the drugs that people who have HIV take, and I was thinking, how can we optimize them to ensure that the viral load goes down? Of course, we have statistics that now there are people who have taken these drugs for a period of time, and now the viral load has gone to undetectable levels, which is quite good. But I think we need to get to the conversation where when will we get a lasting solution? And I'm not saying there's nothing that is being done. There's so much that has been done. There's so much data. Many people like me are doing mathematical modeling about diseases, and HIV being one. And just to mention about mathematical modeling, because every time someone asks me what is the relationship between maths and HIV and diseases, if you just refresh when COVID came, we were told about simulation by modelers. Modelers have said this, that after 2 weeks we're going to get, we use data, because like for HIV there's data that can help you simulate scenarios. And for me, I was working on how to optimize these drugs that the people are taking, which is the best. If someone is taking ARV and they're also taking other drugs, maybe they have other diseases like diabetes and such. How can we do to ensure that we don't have drug interactions? That is something that has been reported. How do we, what can we do to eliminate the one drug being toxic to the other? Those toxicity issues that we need to deal with. So that is, and unfortunately, I left Strathmore University, so I'm not continuing on that. On that research. And sometimes when you do research, it is very sad that most of our work remain in shelves because the country has not moved to the level where there's enough funding for people to push the ideals and the ideas to really end up to something, So there's so many brilliant data researches that have been done by young people, but they're still in shelves.
Right.
We need more funding. We need a government that is very intentional to ensure that research is translated to something. And of course, again, I think we need to start research geared to something, whether it's going to policy, whether it's innovating something that's maybe working with institutions that are doing, maybe if they are doing policies, whether they are doing drugs, manufacturing and all that. So you need to be connected to the industry. I think that connection between universities and industry is not there, and so there's nobody to consume your work.
Sure.
Yeah.
And before we go into what you're doing at the moment, you stopped that research at Strathmore, and I remember the budget that has been allocated towards HIV and AIDS. I can't put my finger on the number right now, but I believe that some of the money that they put into that was just to fund the research to actually materialize into something that can help Kenyans. But then there's something I'd like for you to elaborate more in terms of, do you think that, from my response, what I got from you is that basically no, but do you think that the government is doing enough in terms of helping this? Because that's a whole other pandemic to deal with. It's something we've been dealing with daily for years, but research is done and it gets shelved, and that's not all right. What can we do to make sure the research people have done can actually materialize and can do something to help the country?
No, I think there's so much improvement, because even when I was doing my PhD, the National Research Fund funded a bit of my work. So I think there's something, because you're facilitated to even get to the end, as much as maybe they will not come back to the end and ask you, what did you create that is important? I think Cambridge CDC is doing a brilliant job when it comes to some of these issues that affect us. Is there room for more? There's always room for more. I think getting, and this can also be done in universities, having research labs. So where people are just immersed in researching. So it is not about because my project is one, but I need more other projects, people working on HIV, for us to bring our ideas together to make this big project that will answer many questions. Because if I answer the questions about drugs, someone else need to answer questions on transmission of the virus, or how the virus are infecting the soil, the cells within. And HIV is totally a different virus. The reverse transcription process is something that still has not yet been figured out, how we can take advantage of that, what drugs we can use to ensure it stops that process, because all the drugs that we have, they inhibit a certain process. So the question is, how can we ensure it inhibits all the processes? So there's so much that can be done when people come together. And And I think the government is trying. Of course, there have been a lot of cry that even the ARVs are not enough. Of course, you remember the fight between the government and the people who give us these ARVs. Yes. And of course, I'm happy because I've been seeing that people now are getting the ARVs, but I think it is a time now we get to a lasting solution.
Sure.
And I mean, there are many studies that are, and many trials that are happening outside Kenya and inside Kenya, and I think I'm looking forward to a time where I'll have to read that HIV is gone, because as much as now people can live a normal life, there's a lot of money that is being used to make them live that what people think is normal. And that money could also be helping in other things. And looking like COVID now, we already have a vaccine. I'm thinking about having something like that for HIV.
An HIV vaccine. Oh, that would be amazing. I think that would bring a lot of relief, not just to Kenya, but to the entire world. So I'd have to repeat again that the research you did, even if you're not continuing with it right now, is of paramount importance to this country. And moving on, let's talk about what happened in April. You are actually listed, and I don't know if a lot of people are aware, but I was completely chuffed to find out you're listed as Kenya's 20 most influential women. That's amazing. How many titles are you trying to take?
Oh my goodness.
Kenya's top 20 most influential women. One of them is sitting right here with us.
You know, when that was shared with me, because sometimes you don't know. So someone nominated you, and many people nominated you, and your stories and all that.
Sure.
And maybe the things you're doing, because I do a lot of things for the girls, especially when it comes to STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And I felt nice to just be with many women. I remember when I saw that, I texted the CAS of health, Dr. What is her name? And when I have forgotten her name.
It's okay.
I forget names, especially at a time like now under pressure. And so she said, we have to continue doing what we do. And that was powerful, that we are not stopping. Yes, we are the top most influential women. We could sit back and allow other women to take that, which I think it would be very important.
Sure.
But I don't have to sit. I have to continue pushing. And for me, what speaks to my mind is about women empowerment. You know, women need to be given space at the table. And I think I look at our organization. It is an example of what it means to give women space at the table, because we have more women in the management.
Right.
Yes, and I mean, we are doing well. We are doing projects that are impacting the children of this country. I'm very keen on FGM. I am married in the Tharaka County, and when I joined that county, I didn't know that. I mean, FGM for me was just FGM, but had not come close to FGM. So it was about stories, watching in the news. But when I went to that county and I realized it's happening, I had to be part of programs. And so I joined a program where we bring girls together. Either December, this time we had them when the schools were closed. And we trained them on alternative rites of passage, because they need to feel they have passed something. So even if the law says it is illegal, you need to be jailed for taking your girl and your child through FGM. Even the girls want to, because that is what they know. Yeah. And now we take them through other rites of passage. We train them about issues that they will face in life. And sometimes I use my example because I'm married by the year son. Because again, the issue of marriage, who will marry me if I don't go through this? They will always ask you those questions, and it is quite sad. But those are things that I feel these girls need a lot of empowerment. Of course, many people are saying we have talked about girls and girls and girls and girls and girls, but we only end if this ends, if it stops, if we don't have girls raped, or we don't people losing job because they are women, or we don't have people taken advantage of. And I think for me, women empowerment is something I'm very keen on. Of course, mathematics. Why I promote science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, because I know the jobs of the 21st century are in those 4 areas.
Right.
Where it is sciences, it is in technology, it is in engineering, it is in mathematics. So we need to ensure that everybody, all these young children, get to these careers. And of course, many girls don't want to get into those careers. Why? Because we have already said they are men kind of. Yeah, so those are some of the things I'm passionate about. But when I left this, as I mentioned, I'm no longer working on this research, but I became now a researcher who is more holistic. Because when I joined ZZ Afrique, and what we do is issues related to education. So when you think about education, what comes to your mind? Reading, literacy, and now we have the 21st century skills.
Right.
So trying to come up with assessment frameworks that would assess these levels of competencies. Statistics have shown that 258 million of children in schools are not learning. So sad.
They're in
the
school
whole
but
world.
not learning.
Yes, they're in school but not learning. So you get to grade 5, tell a child, write your name. They can't. Read this. They can't read. But they're in school. They are not learning. So those are something that, they're things that affect me. They affect us. They should make us angry. Not to mention those who are supposed to be in school, but are not in school. So when you think about what they are lacking are these foundational skills. So what we do at the organization is trying to, teaching at the right level methodology, innovating for that and asking ourselves, how can we ensure that a child who is in grade 5 can actually perform things that are required for a grade 5 child, or learner. And of course, we are also interested now with socio-emotional learning, or what we call life skills and values. If you get the posters right now online, is after the exam was out, KCSE, everybody is advertising, we are training for life skills and values. I know you have seen that. There are so many posters, and people are milking money out of the young people who feel they don't have the capacity to deal with 21st century skills. But why? Because they have not been trained. The education system has not offered that, and no one is talking about it in the education system. It is outside where people now are coming up with programs. So what can we do? So what we are starting with is to do an assessment, because you cannot engage with government or people doing policy without some data. So my research is now coming with data that will say adolescents between the age of 13 to 17, they have life skills and values, or they don't have life skills and values. It's only with data. So then with data, we can, after we are able to answer these questions, they have or they don't, we know now what to do next. Do we now need to ensure that there are programs that are offered to ensure that these people gain these competencies? And what is beautiful about this research is because most of the time, and you read research and innovations that have happened in Africa, they always come from US, from Europe. Nothing happened in this global south or sub-Saharan Africa. And so for us, this is the first of its kind. It has never been done, because what we are doing is an amazing thing, developing a framework that can assess whether, like if I take an example with you, whether you have these life skills and values, and we are targeting problem solving, self-awareness, collaboration, and respect, which is a value, and the others are life skills, and we'll give you an activity. So we want to come and observe you, do that activity, and actually say, this youth, it's not right here in Kenya, it is a project in Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania.
So East Africa.
East Africa, and I happen to be there.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Wow, we're proud of you as a country.
Thank you.
That's great.
Thank you.
That's really great. And you've said a lot about, you've worked with FGM, with education. And I remember today we're going to talk about a lot of ladies who've done a lot of firsts. The youngest female, actually the youngest in general, to win the Nobel Peace Prize in 2014, Malala Yousafzai. I think education to her was the answer to eradicate poverty. And so when I hear you pushing education forward as well, and getting rid of FGM, and instead in the place of FGM, replacing everything that's traditional, cultural in that area with something that will help them in succeeding this life, I would ask then, could you be more specific with other projects that you're undertaking? I know you've mentioned some of them already, but let's continue, kwa sababu I think there's a lot of areas and facets that you're covering that you haven't talked about yet.
And thank you for mentioning Malala. I have listened to her clip many times, and I think one of the things she says is one pen, one book, one teacher is all what we all need. And I think that is powerful, that we need to give children education. And education can solve all the other problems you talk about, unemployment, climate change, which is now climate change for real. It's no longer about stories. Yeah. And for me, I think most of the things that I am very passionate about, they're just in education. Of course, I've mentioned about this new project that I happen to manage, which is very complex. You have to read, you have to engage, you have to ask yourself questions, you have to call people and ask them, do you think I'm making sense? You have to start writing. I am not a good writer of some, because writing is diverse. You can think about writing when someone is communicating different things, whether you are communicating things about education, whether it is research, it's totally different. So I have to figure out, who are my audience? Are they youth? So what message? What language are they using? No, they're using Sheng. I have to learn how to to talk about values and life skills using their language. Whether I'm talking to people in the education space, they want data, but this data has to have a meaning. It has to be evidence, because data is not evidence. So it is evidence if it is linked to something.
Sure.
And of course, these are projects, we were, as many ladies, where we were visiting schools. And I loved that project, because you visit schools, many schools they come together. So you visit one school, but there are many schools in that school. So many girls from different areas. And you just, every day you talk about different things. So for me, I'll talk about mathematics. Another person will talk about climate change, something else. So bringing voices of women, because you cannot become what you have not seen. I'm sure there's a lady who inspires you to sit on the table, on the desk, on the chair you're sitting. I mean, there are many people who have inspired you to be where you are. And we need to take those stories to the learners. And whether you're doing it online, whether you go it... But I think there's a study that we did in 2019, and surprisingly, many people don't receive information through social media.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think it's only 20%. It is, I think, below 20.
So it's not as high as we think?
No. And everybody, they are receiving information through the word of mouth. Through the word of mouth means I have to visit the girls where they are.
Yeah.
And let's get to them. Because of course, when you think about my projects, I mean, people who are not in the university, because I believe you need to start down here at the foundational level. Those children don't have the social media. So yes, I'll do YouTube videos and all that, but I want to go to where the children are. But I think what is sustainable, I think, is like what we are doing, where you now generate data, evidence, then you use that evidence to engage government, to tell them, this and this and this is happening. Can you do this to address this issue? I think that is more sustainable, because the government has enough resources to reach everybody. So when you think about programs, I know people are doing a lot of mentorship. Maybe something that the government could model and see what mentorship is to these children. When they talk about science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, what is it for the children? What can they get? How can they get it? Is it retraining or reskilling the teachers? Is it introducing new programs in schools? I think it is more sustainable when it is done by the government rather than the other people, because of the resources.
Sure. And you've talked about so much that you're doing right now. What about in the future? What kind of projects do you want to be a part of? What are your ambitions like? I know right now someone is saying, more ambitions than this, but I know someone like you is driven.
Yes. Right now I'm just concentrating on life skills and values, and I was writing an article over the weekend about one of the values we are concerned, and allow me to mention about it, respect.
Sure.
And I was thinking how respect can be the savior of all the problems you are facing. Think about it. When you think about respect and you open it, there's respect for self, how you see yourself, how you see your worth, how you value yourself, how you love yourself, how you accept who you are.
Yes.
And if a person, if a learner, if a youth in this country is not able to do that, they are going to lose it. if you think about respect for others, if you value me, you regard me irrespective of my culture, my tribe, my religion, you're going to do things that will not hurt me. So all these buggery issues we are having, rape, gender-based violence and all that, murder, they will not happen. If someone respects their office, their space, like you respect where you're employed, you not be corrupt.
Sure.
Issues of corruption will go. Exactly. If someone respects the environment, they will not litter. Sometimes I pass through the market and I'm always annoyed, like, where is Kanjo? What are they doing? So I'm thinking of, and I thought when I was writing that article, I was thinking about it, and I saw like it is the medicine that will solve all the problems.
Respect is a medicine that will solve all the problems,
I think. And because I've read about it, I've thought about it, I've actually put respect in all facets of what is happening, all the problems we are facing, and actually it offers a solution. But this is not something that we are trained. Were you trained how to be respectful? I guess no. You remember when the president of this country was eulogizing the late president of Tanzania,
yes.
And he had to stop his speech for 2 minutes. The people in Tanzania, they felt so respected that they felt they wanted to live in Kenya. They were so. I can't really describe the feeling. And this is the president respecting another country, religion, which I don't think he's a Muslim. Yeah. So he felt that these people, this is what they identify with. And that is one example of how good we can be as human beings. Sure. And when we share statistics in Kenya and say 75.1%, according to Bureau of Statistics, of Kenyans are below the age of 35. That should be scaring us. Because if these people, 75%, only 25% are in this senior level, and they are taking all positions, I think. Sure. I hear young people complaining all the time. So I feel as a country and as young people, we need to take responsibility. And I think for me, I want to do projects that are very close to young people. I know I'll not be young after 4 years, I'll be 35, and after 35 you are no longer classified as youth, but I'll still want to continue working on assessment of life skills, maybe not assessment, because I know after 4 years now we'll have the data, the evidence to shape our discussions, whether it will tell us that youth or adolescents don't have these skills. The question will be, then what can we do? Because for us is, what can we do? We want to innovate solutions, and of course requiring that they could be taken up by government to ensure that we nurture those. We want to create awareness, and I think the media has a bigger responsibility, because they get to many people, and many people listen to what you're doing. So that is where I want to be. Sure. Working in life skills and values, but more on things that are a bit sustainable. So after the assessment, we have the evidence, so using that evidence to do something.
Right, right. And actually, it looks like our time may be up very soon. So just in closing briefly, I know you've shared with us exactly what you're working on and what you would like to get involved in later on. But then what would you say to somebody who's listening and they're completely encouraged and admiring everything that you've done? I know there is, because I'm sitting here and just completely in awe by all that you've managed to do and that you want to do. What could you say in closing?
I think, and this might be my opinion, but if young people get life skills and values that are needed for this century, they can move mountains. Whether you get problem solving, critical thinking, self-awareness, collaboration, name them, innovation, all these skills, if young people get these skills, they can become whatever they want.
Right.
And I think they need to ask themselves, how do I then get these skills? Because they were not given in our education. We didn't get to a class where I was taught how to be good in problem solving, to collaborate, to teamwork, to network and all that. I think it is a high time that the youth know that there's so much resources, get to all the programs that you think can help you, build you holistically. And I believe they will go far.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ari. Thank you, Dr. Purity Ngina, for making time to come and share your wonderful story on this particular segment. And as we say goodbye to the audience, remember that you can reach out to her on her social media pages. Is it at Dr. Purity Ngina? Yes, and kindly do so if you're feeling encouraged by what she's doing. Thank you so much for tuning in. Remember, this is my story. My name is Jo Muchache.
We value your feedback and welcome your complaints